will also be released. The key findings from the report aim to open doors for better collaborative communication between the government, business partners, vendors, and supply chain providers. Extending a warm welcome to our Honorable Chief Guest, I would request Mr. Nandan Nilekani, co-founder and chairman Infosys, Mr. Rahul Singh, President NRAI, Mr. Samir Kuckreja, chairman of the NRAI IFSR 2019 committee, and Chef Manu, Chandra, head of the Bengaluru chapter for NRAI, to kindly release NRAI India Food Services report along with the Bengaluru pullout. Thank you, gentlemen. With over 28 years of experience in the hospitality industry, he is currently the founder and CEO of Tasmanaya Hospitality Private Limited, which specializes in consultancy work for restaurants, hotels, retailers, and technology companies. He was a co-investor with Nevis Capital and CEO of Nilekani. He has also worked with Yum Restaurants and Mars Hotel and Restaurants. I would request Trustee and past President of National Restaurant Association of India and Chairman of the NRAI IFSR 2019 Committee, Mr. Samir Kuckreja, to kindly come on the dais to share highlights from this definitive report for the Indian food service sector. Mr. Kuckreja.
Good evening. Mr. Nilekani, pleasure to have you with us. And I must compliment Manu and the rest of the Bangalore chapter, because when we last did an event 3 years ago, it's definitely much fuller audience, lots more restaurateurs here, so it's great to see more people in the community as part of the NRA. So I'm going to do a quick snapshot of what the overall, the macro overall industry numbers on a pan-India basis. So we've got some very interesting parts of the report. You will get it after all of you registered. I suggest there's a lot of content in the report which is relevant and actually being specifically made to help restaurant operators, especially people who run 1 to 10 restaurants and don't have access to this. There's a really in-depth chapter on consumer behavior, what makes them decide where to go, what are the factors they choose when they eat out. There is a very interesting chapter on digital marketing, which is a bit of a puzzle to everyone, and some parts of it, how much money to spend on different aspects, how to market on different social media. If you're looking at fundraising, there is a chapter on investment, tells you how things are done, how to get your company and your organization ready to get investments. There's also, overall, we've done a chapter on international outlook, which compares the Indian market with the food service market in other countries. And if you're not started or there's also a chapter for guide on how to start a restaurant. So we also have a section. And of course, we've got very detailed sections on the actual industry. So lots of positives in the macroeconomic GDP. By 2025, 28% of the world's working age population will be in India, large consuming class. Changes in consumer behavior. But the food service sector is, as per our data and our research that we've done, is going to grow at 9% versus GDP growth of about 7.7%, so we'll go faster. Key factors is rapid pace of urbanization. There are 250, 300 cities in which Domino's and Cafe already operate. Zomato is in 150 cities doing delivery. Swiggy is also in a lot of cities. So there's a lot of action happening in small town India. Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, Tier 5. And I think there's a lot of opportunity still. Interestingly, among the services sector, we're the third largest. We are not very well known, not known these facts, but we are 5 times the size of the hotel industry in India. We are many times the size of the Indian film industry, so it's $61 billion. That's the current size of our industry. We're large, we're a significant contributor to the government taxation to employment in various aspects. So overall market size, largely what's still, only 35% of the industry is organized. And when we say organized, we classify organized as restaurants which have a license, FSSAI and license. So the dhabas, the roadside, unlicensed players is the unorganized sector. But that's 65%. Our projection is that this will go down to 57%. So I think India will always be a street food. We have a culture of street food and food on the road, so that will always stay there. But of course, the organized sector is growing faster. So in the organized sector, what is the largest is standalone. And what we call standalone is restaurant owners who own 1 or 2 restaurants in a single brand. Anything over 3 we call small chain, we say like. So that's the biggest part of our industry in India. Is people, and I'm sure there will also be in the room, who run 1 or 2 restaurants. That's the large part. Of course, we're hoping, with FSSAI has actually been helping by a lot of pressure on aggregators in terms of only listing, business establishments which have licenses, right? So we're hoping that the industry becomes more organized. It will help us be stronger, more players, going from unorganized to organized. So, employment, 7.3 million is our current employment. This is, of this, 50% is in the organized sector, 50% is unorganized. We expect this to grow to 9.2. There's a whole, which is actually, it was impossible to calculate, but we generate a lot of employment in ancillary industries where we purchase from, whether we're giving business to farmers or whether we're buying packaging, we're actually generating employment in a lot of industries who supply us products, services and capital items. So restaurants are, if you look at the number of motorcycles between the aggregators and restaurants, they're purchased. So there's a huge kind of secondary impact we have on employment. It's still a largely dominant male workforce. We currently contribute about 18,000 crores in terms of taxation. This comes from various sources. Liquor, which is still on VAT, actual GST collected at 5%, and the input tax. So we don't get input tax credit, we're still paying GST on everything we buy. So we're contributing that tax also. So that's what we currently contribute. By format, the way we classify it in different formats, quick service, but the largest format is affordable casual dining. This is at a price point of 350 to 700 per person. This is about 40% of the industry, followed by quick service, fast food, both Indian and Western, which is about 75 to 400 rupees. This is about 22% of the industry. Followed by premium casual dining, which is still 700 to 1250 per person, at about 13%. And pub, bars, cafes, lounges, the Garden City is well known, was and always been the pub and micro-rural city of the country, 12%. Interesting new segment, cloud kitchen, almost 1,000 crores, growing. Dark kitchens, lots of players in various cities, lots of interesting cuisines and concepts happening. But affordable, casual dining, this is the largest segments. So we did a very comprehensive research, over 3,500 consumers in 24 cities, including Tier 1, Metro Tier 1, Tier 2, to understand what drives consumption, what do they look for, what are the aspects they look at when they go to eat, to help everyone understand their consumers better. Average eating out is improved, so it's 6.6 times a month. However, it's very low compared to Singapore, which is about 30 times a month. Thailand, Bangkok is 45 times, and China is 60 times. So when you say that 90 times in a month, 3 meals a day, you don't count the snacking, the 90 meals that average person consumes below. When you start adding the coffee and the snack, you can make it 120, 150. So we are only 6 times. So there's a lot of opportunity for the industry to grow consumption, and I'll talk about different day parts. The average spend is about 2,500 rupees in a month. consumers are saying the same thing. They prefer affordable casual dining and QSR, also cafes. And the visits per month are based on, of course, the highest frequency, most visited are the cafes. You know, low price points, very casual to go to, and QSR. What do the consumers? The consumers, interestingly, 75% of the times these consumers we talk to, these all restaurant consumers we meet now, said their reason to go out is dining out still, 75%. Their frequency of order and delivery and takeaway was combined only 25%. Of course, delivery is growing. So, therefore, the restaurant, the brick and mortar is still dominant in our industry. Experience matters. And what the consumer is saying, for your reference, is not what they read online. The main factor which makes them choose a restaurant is word of mouth. Is what your other customers are telling. That is the most important factor. Well, everyone gets so, I wouldn't say hyped, but stressed about the reviews on the portals and online, and we spend hours and time battling it. The biggest thing, and I know this personally, because I'm a restaurateur, so I have lists which I have in my phone, which I send friends, of the best places to go and eat different cuisines. So it's all word of mouth. So keep that in mind. Cuisine preferences, well, there's a lot of action and there are lots of innovation around regional, Indian and interesting international cuisines. But the main, what is popular, and you'll see an interesting statistic when Manu presents the Bangalore numbers, is still North Indian, Chinese, South Indian and Italian. However, 3 years ago there were not. Today there are in all the metros sushi delivery chains. There is, Hyderabadi food which is, making roads across the country. There is Kerala food which is starting to do really well in restaurants and home delivery. So there's both, I think there's interesting opportunity for people. If you look at regional Indian and interesting, Manu was telling me about his new restaurant, which really sounds interesting with the Pan-Asian, Chinese space. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. Here's where the industry, I think, needs to work. So breakfast is still very low compared to Southeast Asia, it's 5%. Okay? When breakfast can only be created by the industry, by creating relevant products, meals, and giving people reasons to come to your breakfast. Late night, credit to go to the aggregators. On that aspect, they have created a late night. They saw the demand, created a business. It's already there, and this 12 midnight to 5 a.m. I think will go further, especially in clusters like here in other cities where there's BPOs, people working on shifts. And there's this whole chain which only operate from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. doing delivery and doing flourishing business. Of course, dinner is still your strongest meal part. Reasons to go out, still interestingly, is with the family and with friends. Those are the two top reasons consumers are saying. Is all consumers speak why they go out. Those are the two. There are many other special occasion, office colleagues, but it's the reasons to go out, and that's therefore your biggest consumer base. Based on all the research that we did, we've identified four types of consumers. Interestingly, health and wellness oriented is the largest. People who are very Gen Z consumers, focused, very conscious, wanting to know about farm to fork, where they're getting, wanting to know about sustainability, interested in organic, genuinely organic food. So there's also the adventurous explorers who like to try new cuisines, that's 24%. The hedonistic, and there's the worn-out. The worn-out is actually the affluent, the highest spenders. But they're bored, they travel abroad, so they really want innovation. They want something different, they're probably the highest spenders. Different trends, of course, India is a very diverse country. Vegetarian, non-vegetarian is different across the region, across the part, what segments and different types of consumers. Just almost we can download the presentation. Is that available today or no? Yeah. Okay. So just before you give a brief, so you can download the presentations that we're giving today, so you have the data. On a national level, one of the suggestions and recommendations that we have, we've got the biggest issue we have is policy reform. 10 to 15 licenses, each state governments for its own theories of this, their own demands. So our thing is try and get a single window. We've had some immediate traction. We're trying to working with Niti Aayog on creating a ranking of states in terms of licensing, good to bad, name them and shame them. Bangalore might get shamed on some aspects in terms of its backward licensing. But idea is to make it simpler. We've been kind of very actively canvassing with them, and Rahul will talk more about this on GST, with the finance ministry. We've got a recommendation of 2 slabs, keep it at 5% without input tax, and for the players who want 12% with input tax in certain areas. Liquor is not part, we want liquor to be part of GST. We want import duties to be reduced. We would like restaurants to get 30% of the foreign exchange earnings as applicable for duty-free imports. So the licenses need to reduce. They all should become 3 years. You know, the FSAIG gives a 5-year license. Redundant licenses like police should be done away with. Some states have done away with it, but a lot don't. There are many, you know, kind of 30, 40, 50-year-old laws which govern licensing in our industry. Food trucks is another really growing part of the industry. There's no licensing for it. It's very ad hoc in each city. They're also very harassed because of that. We want permission for 24/7 operations. If they've given it at airports, like, you know, train stations, like food courts, some highways, but why not more? Why not around the big wheel of hubs? Why not 24/7? Someone also operate, and there's demand. And of course, there's drinking age. And you know, in Delhi, you're 25, you can't drink, you can't go out. You get married, you can vote, but you can't drink. It's a joke. So it's 18, 21, 25. And so it should be 18 across the country. Those are our national recommendations, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for this insightful presentation, Mr. Kuckreja. All of you who are looking to download this presentation, there is a QR code pasted behind your badges. So you scan it and you get this presentation. Moving on. Known as a global leader in information technology, he received his bachelor's degree from IIT Bombay. He was the chairperson of Unique Identification Authority of India in the rank of a cabinet minister and won the Economist Social and Economic Innovation Award for his leadership. Listed among the world's 100 most influential people by the Time magazine, twice he was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 2006. He is also the author of Imagining India and co-authored Rebooting India, Realizing a Billion Aspirations. I will take this opportunity to invite our chief guest for the evening, co-founder and chairman of Infosys Technologies, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, on the dais for his key address, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Rahul, Samir, Manu, for inviting me here. I'm really delighted to be here, and you know, as a very frequent visitor to all the restaurants, I really value what all of you do for us. And I think Bengaluru in particular is a very innovative city, and I think we are seeing both technology innovation and food innovation happening at the same time. And you also have a lot of people, I think, in the city who have global, you know, travel all over the world, very, very finicky about what they eat and what they drink. And I think they expect very high standards in what they eat. So I think it's really a place where continuous innovation is happening. I just met a guy the other day who has 100 bottles of gin from all over the country, all over the world. You know, people really do very exotic things around here. So I think it's you know, keeping up with all that, I'm sure must be extremely difficult for all of you. And of course, I can see that it's a very hyper-competitive market. I live in Koramanga, and every 2 months, when I drive on Jyotinivas College Road, the restaurants have changed. So clearly, there's a huge amount of competition, and you know, in this industry. So I'm really glad to be here, but I'm also glad to be here because you know, I think the fact that you have an association is very important, and the fact that you're all coming together to become a common voice is very, very important. My own experience, I was one of the co-founders of NASCOM, which was the Software Association 30 years back. And the fact that all the companies came together and you know, sort of put forth what should be the policies for software played a big role in the growth of the industry, which now is more than $100 billion in size. So having an association and having a common unified strategy is extremely important. And therefore, I think what you're doing is very important. And I think I'm also glad because I think, you know, when the whole dialogue in this country is about job creation, you're among the biggest job creators in the country, and the figures speak for themselves. 7 million jobs going up to 9 million in the next 2-3 years. And therefore, I think any industry which creates jobs at that scale, we should respect and we should, give them the right benefits and so on. So I think that's also very important. I feel that I thought I'll speak about 4 or 5 things which are relevant to your industry based on my experience. I think first is that I think the formalization of your industry is inevitable. And I don't know what is the rate of change of restaurants to becoming more formal, but I think there are multiple forces at play which is leading to formalization. One, of course, is the rise of the GST. And while restaurants don't get input tax credit, they still have to become part of the GST chain. And I think GST and GST will become a big reason for formalization. But there are other reasons for formalization. The other is digital payments. As people become more familiar with digital payments, they will expect to pay digitally from their phones. And then once you get to digital payment, that's also a form of formalization, because then you have all the payments that you're doing. And the third thing, of course, is the requirement on food quality, the FSSAI and all that. And they're going to demand more proof of quality, provenance of food and so on. So the whole the formalization drive is going to come from different parts, from the taxation angle, from the payments angle, as well as from the the food quality angle. So I think formalization is inevitable, and I think that's a good thing because it will lead to just raising the bar on how restaurants conduct themselves. But I think the other benefit of formalization, which is often less understood, is that formalization will also provide the basis for credit. I think the big thing which is happening today is digital credit, which is what's called as flow-based lending, where you get working capital and other loans based on the volume of business and the velocity of business that you have. And I think now, I certainly see a lot of startups in the flow-based lending area, which means that they will look at the flow of transactions in your restaurant, and based upon that, they can give you a working capital loan. So I think while formalization may have certain costs of dealing with the system, I think the benefit that it will give access to all entrepreneurs in these high-velocity businesses, access to credit at an affordable price, I think is a big reason to justify formalization. So I would really look at how to make sure that all your members get access to credit, leveraging the data that they will have as they start having more payments and digitally and so on. So I think credit is really the benefit of formalization, which I hope all of you will get access to. Let me also talk about the other aspect, which is the whole aggregator stuff. I know it must be a sensitive topic, so I don't know how to frame this. And I think it's aggregators are what you can call as frenemies, friends and enemies in some sense. I think all of us will have to deal with aggregators because they will take up an increasing part of the pie, and they help because they help in increasing volume. But there are also again issues of costs, delivery costs, commissions, and in a low margin business, how do you appropriate this up to all the players? And so I think this is going to be a constant conversation that you'll have with aggregators. And of course, once aggregators get into cloud kitchens, then they become direct competitors, and therefore you need to think about how to deal with that. So I think it's important for restaurants to keep ensuring that they have independent presence. There's a good reason for people to walk into your restaurant. You should have a brand strong enough to attract people to come in spite of aggregators. So there are many things that I think can be done to deal with this. But I think the other thing is, what is the impact of this on the supply chain? I think to me, the thing is that the demand fulfillment of a restaurant is very different from the demand fulfillment of an aggregator. I think so. I haven't sat in a restaurant to check this out. But fundamentally, in the restaurant, people come in, sit down, order, and they get served, and they expect that they get served in 10, 15 minutes or whatever. The aggregator is very different. With the aggregator, first of all, you need to have a separate window for the aggregator so it doesn't mess up with the customers in the restaurant. The aggregator wants the service to be done in 2 minutes because he's optimizing his delivery boy, and he's got all kinds of data which says that he reached your restaurant at 12:01 and he needs to leave by 12:03 or something like that. And therefore, you need to have a much faster response cycle for delivery. And the second thing is that it creates massive fluctuations in demand, right? I mean, if you have an IPL match and suddenly there's a huge spike in orders, the supply chain needs to respond to that. So I think there are a lot of supply chain implications of combining running a restaurant with delivery, which you need to think about. And I think that's on the demand side. On the supply side, I think you're going to, the good news I feel is that we are going to see more and more, technology-enabled aggregators of groceries, fruits, vegetables, and so on, meat, and so on. And so you have to plug into that side, and you already see Zomato Gold, Ninja Card, so many guys are there. So I think what's happening there from the demand side, you will have these demand fluctuations because of both in-premise customers as well as aggregators. The supply side, you would have a new breed of suppliers. Formalization is going to drive technology in your own thing. So I think completely revamping and thinking through what is that architecture of running a restaurant, what is the technology that we need, whether it's barcodes, beacons, all that I think becomes very important. I do hope you guys are thinking about these issues and being proactive in dealing with that. So I think that's another important thing, that the changes being brought in the market will drive a lot of this, and embracing technology, embracing supply chain, leveraging all the modern stuff which is available, and really building very agile supply chains to deal with all this dynamic customer behavior, I think becomes very, very important, and I would pay attention to that. I think the other important thing is, I believe that you can do something about training. One of the things, if you're going to hire 7 million people today, and you're going to go to 9 million people in 2 years, which means 2 million new people are joining your industry. And I'm assuming attrition rates are fairly high in your industry, which means actually a replacement is more like 3-4 million. You must think in ways, and that's something which you can do cooperatively. It's not about competition, it's about getting together and getting this solved. And I think there's a strong case for all of you to come together and create a whole training program with certification, attestation, and all that, so that millions of people can be geared up for your industry, whether it's in the front office or back office, in the kitchen, it doesn't matter where. But I think just creating that and creating a certification system which is recognized by all the members will have a dramatic impact on the human capital in your business. And I think it will also establish the industry as a job creator, as someone who's investing in skills. So I would urge you to think about, and this cannot be technology enabled. I'm not saying set up classes. You can actually do all this completely online, and there's enough stuff out there to do this. But I think if you can create, as a group, if you can come together with a plan to raise the skills of millions of people, in restaurants, I think that would be a great thing. I think just one action of coffee day, the more people know how to make cappuccino than ever before, and so on. Maybe beer, the more people know how to serve beer than ever before. So the thing is that, but we are doing it sort of without strategically planning. But I think if we say we want to be a 10 million job creating industry, what does that mean? 10 million people. How many of them will be, in the front desk? How many at the back? How many people in the kitchen? How many people in the sourcing? And then say, how do we do something together to raise the capability, raise the abilities? Because this is a service industry, and therefore the interaction between customer and your people becomes important. So I would really urge you to think about that as something that you guys can do together and do something about it. And finally, let me talk about ease of doing business. And I think one of the challenges you face, in my view, is that you're dealing with multiple levels of government. So when you're dealing with income tax, central government. When you're dealing with GST, it's a central plus state government common GST council. When you're dealing with some state registration, it's a state issue. When you're dealing with a building permit or a Shops and Licenses Act, it's a state issue. Building permit is a municipal issue. So the thing is that your business is such that you deal partly with the central government, partly with the state government, partly with the municipality. So having worked in government, and I know a little bit about this, they all operate, generally, everybody is doing their part of it. But, you say, I want like a one-stop shop, it's not going to happen because they're all individually different departments. And therefore, it's worth thinking of how do you proactively suggest to the system how ease of business can be brought about, which means how do you have a common interface for registering with the state governments, have that as a platform, make sure that every state adopts that platform so you have the same look and feel for everyone, How do you make sure that, build links to the GST system? So I think there's a way to think about, because I think saying let the system do ease of business, I'm not so sure how long that will take. But if you can articulate what that ease of business for you means, and systematically go work with the stakeholders to create interfaces between your industry and the system, which is much more simple and automatic, I think you will ultimately benefit from it. So I think there are lots of things happening here at a very exciting stage in restaurant business. I'm a big believer that India's growth will come from domestic services-led growth, which is exactly what it stands for. And I'm convinced that with this kind of group action that you're doing, you'll go places, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your key insights on the industry, Mr. Nilekani. I am really hopeful that the restaurateurs sitting here get a lot of hope from this speech, and they will believe that there is scope of growth for the industry. Now moving on. With 40 locations within a short span of few years, his restaurant already has become the largest, fastest and most awarded alcohol beverage service brand in India. Originally a textile engineer, he has undergone training in dropware technology at Micromatic Institute in Florida, USA. Recipient of TIACON 2014 Entrepreneurial Award for Excellence, he was also bestowed with the prestigious Entrepreneur India Award in F&B Service in 2015 and Elite Entrepreneur Award for 2018. I would like to now invite this professional turned entrepreneur, founder and CEO of India's favorite beer chain, The Beer Cafe, and the president of the National Restaurant Association of India, Mr. Rahul Singh, for a special note. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir, for gracing this occasion. For me, it's a milestone because I've always wanted to shake my hand with Mr. Nilekani, and which I've done today. Always followed you, and it's really an honor to be here, to be sitting next to you. I don't have a speech, I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to, give you some learnings and talk about where we are and what Nrai is doing for you and what can we do together. So, a big takeaway from Mr. Nilekani's speech was one takeaway that I take is innovate. And that is very important. If you do not innovate, we will all perish, for sure. This is not the dinosaur regime, this is going to be the cockroach regime, they call it. But we have to innovate. There are a lot of things that's happening in the world right now. India is unique because we're opening up to the world much faster than ever. Probably from 2G, 3G, we're directly adopting 5G. So the data is all there. People are, the millennials are looking at anything and everything at any given time. So the world's collapsing. And this is the time for us to actually utilize that force to make it into our business. What does Nrai do? Nrai is the voice. We are the advocate. We are the ones who are going to be taking all your problems and all your issues to the governments, whether it's the central government or the state government. And how do we go about doing it? Like it was addressed, you know that our problems are always hyper-local, they're real-time and they're very dynamic in nature. I wish somebody creates an algo which actually tells us where the problem is going to be next, but it's not happening right now. It just happens overnight, and it happens at any given time. I still remember when there was a highway liquor ban, I was on a 100-feet road, we had an outlet, and that 100-feet outlet got covered in the highway, but 5 other outlets just 5 meters away didn't get covered. So that's the kind of, like let's say the situation that we actually go through every day. There's one thing that, the restaurateurs do. If you look at our industry, we're all talking about invest in India, we're talking about make in India, we're talking about start in India. This is one industry which serves in India. This is an industry which serves here. It's a domestic service industry. It's an extremely important industry, not only for domestic consumption, but also for tourism. If you look at tourism in the world, one of the two things we always do, whenever we go to a new city, we always talk to our friends and peers or whoever, what do I do? And the next question is usually, what do I eat? Or where do I go out and eat? So it's very important for us to be the gateway for tourism. Anybody who's coming to India, domestic or as well as inbound travelers, this is the best place for them to be. It's a smiling business. I'm not from this business. I got into this exactly 6 years back. I'm a retailer. But what I've seen is empathy. The empathy is unbelievable. I call it a smiling business. It's not return on my investment, it's return on humans, is what I see. Every day, we have 800 people in our team. Every day I see that return on humans. And it gives me a lot of privilege. It actually gives me goosebumps when I see the kind of working conditions we work in. When everybody is holidaying, that's the time we're working the hardest. Saturdays, Sundays are the most difficult days for us in the week. We're working on Christmas and New Year's when everybody is partying. And that's what it is. I see my staff actually meeting at 4 or 5 sometimes, just eating in a go. I've never seen anybody work so hard. I'm from the textile world where I thought everybody was working very hard, but when I came here, they were hardly working honestly. It's an amazing field to be in. It's an amazing sector to be in because, like I said, it's actually serving in India. So from imagining India, rebooting in India, I wish we could all write a book called Serve in India. That's what's going to happen. From a DPIIT point of view, which was DIPP, there is a lot of movement that's happened. I think we're all waiting for the government to be formed, whichever the government may be. But DPIIT being an administrative role towards any government is going to be working towards EODB. And we've been talking about EODB is ease of doing business. We're just telling them, you know what, just don't make it FODB. Right now it's fear of doing business. Let's move that FODB to an EODB. Look at everybody's face here right now. This is that 9% worn-out generation, which is actually pointed out in Samir thing. Everybody looks so worn out, and we're actually quite young, but we look very old automatically. There's something with restaurateurs, they look very, very worked up. And the reason is because we're always worked up with the systems that we have to go through. It's unbelievable. It's as quiet as in a restaurant right now in Bangalore as it is here right now. There's no music because Bangalore does not allow you to play music. You can play music anywhere, but you can't play music in a restaurant because that's not allowed. You need a fire embassy to play music, which I have absolutely no correlation with. But that is the way the laws work. And they're very difficult. They only get difficult. Well, we've been working with DPIIT on 2 things mainly. One is creating a uniform restaurant policy. A uniform restaurant policy is something like the Aadhaar initiative. If I have one Aadhaar number, I have one passport number, I have one PAN number, why can't I have one restaurant number? And why can't it be renewed on a digital platform? When everything is so digital, what Sir has done for Aadhaar is an unbelievable project for this country. And that's something that we could actually use upon. It's already there. That platform already exists. And why do we have to go and push papers everywhere? Why do we have to make photocopies and kill trees and create such a big paper trail? Why can't the licenses be issued? Imagine, in my case, I'll give you this example, because I deal with liquor or alcohol beverage. I have some renewals happening at any given time, and I have new outlets opening every 2 or 3 weeks, so I also have new renewals happening. The law says the liquor license on the name, except in Bengaluru, in Karnataka, in the name of the director of the company or the holder of the company. So every 10-15 days, I have a cop coming to my house and taking a character certificate. It happens every 10 days. And the 2 witnesses have to be my neighbors, and they're like really fed up of me because every time he said, is there something wrong with you? And I said, no, there's nothing wrong. The problem is, because the police station doesn't understand that why don't you just take the certificate once? Put my poster up in your place. I am character, not less. I'm a pretty character person. Why don't you just do this? They don't get it. Every time the same copy is the same. Imagine if you're renewing your passport every 15 days, God bless you. You would never even travel outside your city. And that's what's happening. But that is what, the processes are. When we sat together with DPIIT and created a round table, what I realized was most of the people don't want to give away their power. It's about the power game here. It's about, I am a Babu, I will not give away power. I am not going to give away because I am just doing this. And like I'll give you an example. It was mentioned about the police eating house, which is not in Karnataka, but we have a police eating house to serve a sandwich in Delhi state. Delhi is the unstate state, half state, whatever you want to call it. So there's a Delhi police license, 1978 law. It's not for Big Bazaar. It's not for an Apple store. It's only for a place where you're eating. If you're eating a sandwich, a Subway sandwich, why do you need a police eating house? Now, if it was digital, life would be easy. But you have to actually provide 24 different requirements to actually get that police eating house. But if you get a firearm license, if you want a weapon license, only 12 requirements. So it's easy to get a weapon license in Delhi than to get a sandwich license. That's how crazy it is. But the police doesn't want to give it away because they believe in that. And when we show them data, there are 100,000 eateries in Delhi. Why do only 5,000 have? You've got a 95,000, which is 95%. People are not even taking it because they don't care about it. They don't have an answer for that. So when you throw data, people actually get fumbled about it. And data is something that we are actually created. This whole report has taken us 8-9 months. It's all about data. At the end of the day, you cannot not talk data. Data is something which will always be there. It's a figure. And that is something that we have. We have the figure from going from 7 million employees to 10 million people. That 10 million people that we will be employing is 10 million votes for somebody. But that 10 million people is also something which is the quickest to actually start up on. If you look at it, we can skill a person within a day. Get a computer engineer, there will be a requirement for it. Get a person in the video, there will be a language, there will be some training. Here, a person can train within a day. There are certain sections that we do. We also go from any section to any section. A general manager for a restaurant all the way to a person who's going to be housekeeping. Look at the kind of society or the kind of spectrum that we actually cover, and it's very quick to skill. That's also the reason that a lot of us are actually entrepreneurs. We were never funded. Funding is happening in fintech, funding is happening in tech, and it's not happening in an industry because it is a very difficult industry. A lot of investors don't realize how difficult it is. Once they get in, they realize that more headwinds than tailwinds, and that is why they actually get reluctant to actually fund. But it's self-driven. People have given away their houses on loan against property to actually build restaurants. People have actually, clobbered all the money they have from family and friends to actually build a restaurant. It's not an easy business to be. And it's a tough business to be. But at the end of the day, when we see smiles on people in our guests, that's the time you feel, okay, it was a job well done. You come back home and you sleep at 2 in the morning, but you feel it's a job well done. And that is what this industry gives to you. Another aspect that we're looking at this point in time is the aggregator part, which is a big elephant in this room for a lot of us. Now, what is our business or purpose? Our purpose is very simple. Our purpose is to actually to provide more non-home cooked food. I'm not saying, our mothers and family members at home will never cook. They will cook. But we're actually creating more occasions. As the cities become far more nucleus, as the cities become far more dependent on everybody working in a family, I think we will have more occasions to have non-home cooked food. And then that is the time when dining out or eating in is going to be there. Eating in at the office, eating in your home, thanks to Netflix, is all going to become much bigger. But dining out is an experience. It's something you cannot take away, and people will continue doing it. And that's the time we have to innovate. That's the time we have to innovate. If we do the business of food, why should somebody who's a 20-year-old IIT Delhi, IIT Kuckreja comes out and creates a cloud kitchen? We're already there to do that. There's nothing against that person out there, but he's actually going after this because he understands tech. You understand food, he understands tech, you understand food. You just have to marry together. The aggregators are going to help us, but there will be some level playing field. It's already cut off. The e-com policy is actually about to be tabled. We are a very important part in that, and in that we basically ask for a fair, no deep discounting, no predatory pricing. Make it fair. Let's go for the purpose that we are in. Let's go for the purpose that we are all in this room for, is to actually create more occasions for people to actually eat out or dining. It's as simple as that. Wherever it comes from, that doesn't matter. How it comes from is matters. Are we looking at where we are actually looking at in a way that there are no unfair practices in terms of creating algos which are benefiting your own brands? Those are all things we're talking about. So it's inventory-based model, it's marketplace-based model, but those are things that we and Nrai have actually already worked upon. So we're very clear and very, very conscious about that fact that the aggregators are here to stay, and we're here to actually embrace it. We're not here to fight it. We're here actually, like you said, it's a frenemies situation. I would say it's more friendly than enemies in any case. Shouldn't look at them as an enemy at all. They're actually creating more occasions. That's what actually matters. Look at the business where it's gone from 308 lakh, 3.08 lakh crores to 4.23 lakh crores, going up to 6 lakh crores. That's a lot, but still a lot less. 4.23 lakh crores in dollar terms is $60 billion. You'll be surprised. Indonesia does that in food service business. Indonesia is $60 billion. Thailand is $30 billion. It's half of India's food service market. And if you look at Turkey, that's $20 billion, that's 1/3. I'm not talking about US, Brazil, Russia, China. I'm just talking about neighboring smaller countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and Turkey. They're doing as much as we should be doing. But where we are is, we're just at $60 billion because the pie is really big. It's only going to expand. And it's going to become $100 billion very soon. When it's going to become $100 billion, the formalization will happen. Already from 33% to 35% to 43%. It's predicted that in the next 3 years, it's 43% going to be the formal economy. The way formalization will happen is thanks to a lot of reforms. GST has been the best reform. But believe it, it's actually hurt us really bad. Because GST without ITC is not GST. It's not GST at all. GST, The entire purpose of GST is to actually have no cascading of tax, not have tax on tax, and always get destination-based tax, which is what GST is all about. We're very close to cracking that with the finance ministry. We've been able to explain to them that the government has actually lost more tax than they could have gotten. 3 years back, you would be surprised the tax collection by the government was more than today. So the money is actually disappeared. And the government is not part of it. If the government doesn't get the tax, how will the society function? It's as simple as that. And that is what we're trying to tell them, that you lost out on the tax, and it's been happening because you've just taken away the ITC. And it's given in because there is a formal economy, there's an informal economy which wants to become formal. Make the life easy. And in that, there is a huge amount of segment which wants the GST to be a simple composite tax, which we believe in. A 5% is a remarkable output tax. It can't get less than 5% anywhere in the world when it comes to food services. It cannot be. But let it be without ITC. This is a person who owns the stock, owns the store, is there to open it, to close it, has the entire family members working on it, buys on cash, all the raw materials, fine. He doesn't get ITC. And ITC is not that easy. You know, ITC is a very simple word to say, but the process of ITC is not easy. You are the gatekeeper. We are the gatekeeper from a point that if you do not get the input tax credit, we're not going to pass it on, we're not going to get the credit. So we are the gatekeepers for the government in any case, and that's what we explain to them. Please make me a gatekeeper. I'll give you an example. I have another business where I had ITC to claim, and we realized that for 6 months, people whom I paid the GST on whatever supply of service and goods I got, did not even deposit the GST. Now in the restaurant business, if your supplier or vendor has not deposited the GST, that's very simple. If you're not going to get a credit. So the government will see that. Right now you don't care. You buy an air conditioning for your restaurant, it's 28% GST. Half the people will say, I will become creative. Why should I pay 28% GST on an air conditioning? Why should my chair cost 18% GST? If you're not going to get an input, you will not even take a bill. It's simple maths. A lot of people will not do it. Now what's happening? The capital expense has gone up. If I could open 10 outlets, I'm opening 8. I don't have money to open 10 because 20% is my GST which I don't get an input. And I start getting very creative. And that's what's happening. So GST is an important factor for any growth. And I think it's been the most reformative action. It's also very easy to do. It's very easy in terms of the process. All the things have gone. I can tell you between GST, between VAT and certain other returns, I file 498 returns every year. It's the most stupid thing. We've got 2 people only filing returns the whole day. But that is the way it works. It's only getting simplified because it's all become digital. So as we keep breaking these chains, we are looking at innovation. Digital is extremely important. In my business, I can tell you exactly a year back, our mobile payment was not even a percentage. We just did a round, closed a year, and we realized 9% came from mobile wallets. 9% came from mobile wallets. Plastic cards 70%, 20% cash, and about 9% coming from mobile wallets. That's the new India for you. That's the new India who's got his phone, who's got everything on the phone, he's just moving on the phone. And that's the India we have to all capture after. And that is why we have to reboot ourselves. If we do not reboot ourselves, we will actually fry. Somebody else will take our place. It's as simple as that. So it's perform or perish, otherwise there is no tomorrow. I'll be around here after this because we have a cocktail and dinner. More than happy to address any questions or any suggestions that you have, because together that is what we are building. We're building a new India for the restaurants. We're building something that is going to be there forever and perpetual. And thank you, Bangalore, for having such a large audience from the restaurant fraternity. We do have a Bangalore panel after this, which will be very specific about Bangalore and the issues here. I myself face it. I have only 3 outlets here. This is the only city I've not been able to expand because every time I come, there is some issue or the other, and it just really prevents you from expanding. But this is a city which was the pub city. We all came here. I still remember after my college, this was the city we came. That's the first time we had a draft beer in our hands, and this is a city we would all love to be part of. So it's become a Silicon city, but it was always a pub city as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for addressing the concerns of the restaurant fraternity to Mr. Nilekani. Armed with top honors from Culinary Institute of America, his passion for food surfaced at a young age. Having worked with Michelin star chef Chef Aileen Hellstorm at Bagatelle, he has received accolades and appreciation from around the world as one of the most promising and talented young chefs in India, namely in the New York Times and Time magazine. Please allow me to invite on stage chef and partner, Olive Garden Kitchen, and of course head of the Nrai Bangalore chapter, Chef Manu Chandra, for a presentation on the Bengaluru food service market.
Good evening. Thank you, Nandan, for coming and inaugurating this for us. It means a lot. So I'll keep this really quick, short and brief. I think all of you already hear enough of me, and obviously between WhatsApp group we have enough being discussed already. But given that this is such a comprehensive report, I thought it's only fair that we share some snippets that they put together for the Bangalore pullout. So I'm going to start quickly. This shouldn't come as a surprise to most of you, but let's just say that when I moved to Bangalore in 2004, it was fairly fledgling as far as restaurants and the dining out scene went. I think UBCP was probably still in foundation stage, and there was maybe 3 or 4 restaurants that were spoken about, and of course 3 or 4 iconic ones which mercifully have lasted till today. From then to now, we're number 3 in all these 3 major things. You can see it on the screen, right? Right. So, highest in number of restaurants, largest in the organized food service sector, as well as the highest in creating employment. And that's something that I've been, whenever we do representations to government, that's the one point that I keep harping on with the people in power, that we're a tremendous gateway for employment, sometimes for the, as I call them, unemployable. A lot of people who are moving from small towns to bigger cities, the first place that they find jobs is the restaurant industry. We become a gateway for tax generation, and I think it's about time that government took notice of that, and of course made life a lot easier for us. 42,000, nearly the number of restaurants between the organized and unorganized sector. That's massive. And 20,000 crores from the organized food service market alone. I would go out on a limb to say that it's probably 2.5 times the number if we add the unorganized sector in this. That's huge, again, just from this city. Again, this is just numbers for the organized sector. This could be as high as 3 lakhs as far as organized and unorganized is concerned in terms of employment alone. We did a press conference earlier, and I was telling them that the map in itself is almost 4 times the size, so you can only imagine what the density of restaurants are, especially in some of our more popular areas like Gardenia, as Nandan was mentioning earlier, Indranagar, and now of course we have fair representation here from people who've spread out to places like Sarjapur, etc., which have become new hubs in their own right. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Rahul, I don't think there's any other city with as many food hubs now, entire roads, as Bangalore is. There's some interesting stuff that comes up over here, especially this statistic over here, that, and this is courtesy Zomato, by the way, this thing that North Indian food actually outranks biryani and South Indian food put together in the city of Bangalore. So, talking about cultural appropriation, I think we probably lead over there as well, and it goes to show that dining trends can often be fairly unpredictable, and aspirational value is very different. And you're talking about the rise of regional cuisine and how that's cutting a lot more favor in the north. It's precisely the reverse that's happening in other parts. In the south, you're seeing the rise of North Indian cuisine, and there's a fair representation again over here, if I do a quick glance. And it's fascinating. That's the average per month that a household spends on eating out, and I believe the numbers in China and Southeast Asia are exponentially higher than that. So obviously there's a lot to look forward to in regards of that. This is something which the NRAI has been tackling now for a while. I've been actively part of it for 3 years, and I have to say that the 3 years have actually been some of the most difficult for the industry. It started with the high-weight liquor ban, which Rahul was talking about earlier, which of course was, as the Supreme Court rightly corrected nearly 2.5 months into that ruling, was too literal a reading down of the law. But that's why the Supreme Court exists. I mean, you pass a law and then you're supposed to do a literal reading down of it. We fought it in court. Unfortunately, there's no real point of fighting the apex court and the lower court. But I think the number of fights that happened across the country, and it wasn't only Bangalore that was doing it, Chandigarh was also doing it, Bombay was also doing it. That made at least the Supreme Court take note of the fact that it was causing tremendous unemployment, closures, unnecessary actions essentially, and that's probably what made them change their mind. That did save a substantial part of the industry, and almost, I think the entire effort was led by members of the NRAI that brought the industry from the brink of disaster. Lately, of course, we've been having a lot of issues which Rahul very passionately mentioned right now, especially regarding the PEL, the music license that's required to play music in Bangalore. Most of you would be aware that you can now play music in Bangalore, but there are other clearances that are required for it, which should be mentioned on record. But having a fire NOC and an OC to play music is kind of ludicrous. Again, something that's being addressed, and several members here have come with me when we've gone and met the Home Minister, we've met the Police Chief, we've met the Fire Chief, we've met the BBMP Commissioner, we've met the Mayor, and I mean, it's clear that they all are riding on the ambiguities that exist in the law. So the next step obviously becomes to be able to tackle those laws in whichever way we can, for which we need a lot more unity than we do have right now with the restaurant community in Bangalore. And as both Nandan and Rahul mentioned earlier, that is going to be the key going forward. Staggered approach seldom works in cases like these. It needs to be a lot more structured, it needs to be a lot more unified. And it's impossible in a voluntary organization to expect a handful of people to bring about that change. The change will only happen when everyone works together. So I think a lot of these issues and the recommendations that come along with it will only be possible when everyone works together. So I'm genuinely looking forward to the membership of NRAI in Bangalore especially growing by leaps and bounds, because we have so many people who run restaurants, both the unorganized and the organized. People I knew 10 years ago who weren't even in the restaurant business already have more than 15 restaurants in this city alone. And that's admirable, but I would also implore them to please be active participants in trying to bring about positive changes for the city and for the business. It is, after all, for our own good. And on that note, I promise I'd keep this to within 4 minutes. Thank you all for coming, and thank you again, Nandan. Rahul, Samir, for coming back, coming from Delhi. And next, just brief.
Thank you, Chef Chandra. As a token of appreciation, I would request our President to kindly give away this gift to Mr. Nilekani. Now we will move on to a session on Bengaluru specific issues. For the same, I would now like to invite Mr. Pravesh Pandey from Victoria's Tea Brewing Company, Ms. Meghna Vakada from Barley and Grapes Concept, Mr. Rajesh Rajaram from Ebony, and Mr. Akshat Prasad from Vapor to join Chef Chandra for a panel discussion. I'll just come back in a moment.